Okay, we're recording here, and we are recording here. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Jason Fudin. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. So Jason's coming to us from Washington, D.C. this morning. And before we turn on the mics, I thanked Jason, but I'll do it again. Thank you so much for giving me this project, this podcast, and the listeners your time. I'm a firm believer that the most valuable thing that you and I have is time. So thank you for sharing yours this morning.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. We were really excited to chat.
Yeah, great. So I don't want to be typical at all in this interview, in this podcast, but I feel like I have to start off with a typical answer that you probably get asked numerous times when doing this or just chatting with people out in public. So tell me and the listeners more about what is WhyHotel. I'm dying to know from you, from your mouth, what is WhyHotel?
So I guess there's what's WhyHotel today and where's WhyHotel going, which I think are two very different things. We're a fairly young company. We're about 18 months old now. And we run pop-up hotels in new apartment buildings. And I should explain that to you because we kind of made up the term. So so when someone builds a high-rise apartment building for rent, whether that's in Vancouver or San Francisco or LA or in the city, they build the building and they deliver it all at once because it's made out of steel and concrete, and you can't have residents moving into a building that's under construction. So they'll deliver 300 or 400 units. And what that means is it'll take them about a year to fill it up with residents. And the reason it takes them about a year is they want it so all the leases roll over, not at the same time. And that means there's hundreds of empty units the day the building delivers. So what our pop-up hotel does is it takes 100 or more of those empty units. We fully furnish them. We pull hotel licenses from the cities, and we run a hotel out of that vacancy. So it's a hotel made up of brand new apartments in a brand new building. And so it makes a ton of sense on the real estate side. And then for consumers, you're now left with a product that has a 24/7 on-site host and hospitality ambassador team. They're all local. They know the area. They know where to get an Italian sandwich. They know where to grab a drink or a cocktail. And for our guests, they have full homes. So when you're traveling with young kids or you're that Monday to Thursday business traveler, you're now just staying in a brand new apartment. And so kind of that's what we are today. Mm-hmm. What we represent, though, is this evolution to the blurring of real estate asset classes. And we say that we're at the blurring of the line between hospitality and home, right? So that like service level you see in hotels, you're seeing more and more creep into the residential space. And the ability to have stays that are not just your standard hotel room where you have a bed and a cramped desk and it's like 10 TV channels. We're changing that as well. And so what this represents is our pop-up product is where we are today, but really it's allowing us to build a platform around where these assets are coming together.
That's cool. So walk me through logistically, what would a property have to have? So for example, here in Vancouver, we're seeing buildings get built all the time because there's such a high demand here for condos, for multi-tenant buildings. So what does that building logistically need to have for it to be an attractive opportunity for WhyHotel to come in and run a pop-up hotel?
Yeah, so Vancouver and Toronto are interesting because there's a lot more condo development than you see in U.S. cities. And for the listeners, that means that they're buildings where someone buys the unit as opposed to rents it.
Right.
And so we don't go into condo buildings. And the reason we don't is there's a new sticker premium. So if you're buying a condo that's never been lived in, you can charge more for it than if someone's lived there. On the flip side, in an apartment building, so if there was a high-rise building for rent going up in Vancouver, let's say it was 400 units, that is perfect for us because when we leave, we go in and we clean up the unit, we repaint it, we steam the carpets, we do a deep clean of the appliances. And so the renter that moves in it's still a like new product. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't hurt the owner's ability to charge the same rent. And so for us, a perfect building is over 200 units. We're taking about 100 or more. And it's in urban locations where there's strong hospitality demand already. Ideally for us, both business and leisure travel. But if there's a really strong leisure travel market or a really strong business market, we can do one that's kind of not symmetric.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know what data you have in regards to what's going on in Vancouver, but my partner, when we first met and first started dating, she was in a building that was actually just rentals. So
Yeah.
I feel like those are now happening as someone sneaks in behind you there.
Yep. We're in the office, this is where we make, this is where we make.
I like it. I like it. This is great. So with that knowledge that there are developers now developing apartment buildings strictly for rental. So that would be ticking that number one box for you. Is it has to be that it can't be condos that are for sale. It must be a building that, for the totality of it, is a rental building. Correct?
That is correct. And in the States, that is the prime asset class for urban assets.
Right.
In Canada and in other countries, that's not always the case. In Australia, they're just starting to roll out for rent multi-communities. It's always been for sale.
Mm-hmm.
In the States, you see very small number of high-rise condo projects because of the risk exposure for them, and that's just not where the market is.
Is that, and I'm just super intrigued by this, is that a density thing? Is that because we don't have the density here that demands that, or is it just different models?
Vancouver and Toronto are highly dense. I think it's more cultural, honestly, than anything else. It's probably a combination of cultural and financing, but an economist could probably tell you better than I could.
Yeah.
But I that's just the way it is in those different places, and so so that's just the market we're kind of left with.
I want to change speeds just a little bit, and this is going to sound somewhat strange, but as I was showering this morning, I was thinking about this interview today.
This is definitely strange.
And I generally tend to leave my interviews completely as a discovery so that the conversation can be really genuine and the questions can be genuine as well. But something popped into my head that comes up a lot on this show when I'm talking strictly to developments that I'm seeing in restaurant side of things, so the food side of the hospitality business. And one theme that we're seeing really become prevalent here locally and nationally is this QSR model, so a quick service restaurant model, which I'm sure you're familiar of. And the reason for the success is it's allowing for the user to get what they want, generally at a good price, get in and get out, and generally it's healthier and arguably better food than your traditional, with all due respect, like your McDonald's or your Subways, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But the issue that I take with it is it's different from your traditional brick and mortar restaurant because it doesn't have that hospitality piece. So if you and I were going to go into lunch to a place locally here, it's called Tractor, where it's a QSR. We walk in, we order our food, we pay for our food, we eat, and then we leave. There's very little interaction with the brand Tractor. So I'm wondering if you guys consciously were thinking of this when thinking of WhyHotel, because I look at what you're doing as taking like the Airbnb model, if you will, but bringing the hospitality of, again, like a hotel back to that experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is how engaged with the brand are the users, and I think your example of QSRs is because it's so rapid. There's not as much of a human interaction. It's kind of like more like the cafeteria. They're just scooping and passing. Yeah, you're
on your own kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, so QSRs have been popular in the States for about 10 years now. So it's actually funny you mentioned McDonald's. Chipotle was the first major quick service restaurant in the United States, built by McDonald's folks. And so they were kind of the innovators in the space. When you go into a Chipotle or, a Cava, which is a growing Mediterranean brand here, or a Sweetgreen, or, there's a number of them. They're not self-service, but they are fast serve. They count how long it takes per customer in seconds, and that's part of their model to drive volume so they can be decently priced, and they're always fresh. Every touch point you have is still focused on the brand. And so what you receive, the food is on the brand, the application you use to buy the food quickly is in the brand, the space is branded. And so you end up feeling very much connected to where you go, even if you didn't have a waiter bring it to you.
Right.
In our case, we actually don't have that problem as much because you are meeting with a person. I'd say it's the reverse. A hotel, when you check in, it feels very sterile, right? Like, hi, I'm such and such, can I have your card? Thank you, enjoy your stay. In our case, when you check in, you're going into a 2-bedroom unit we've retrofitted as a sky lobby, and there's someone sitting there who is a local. And so when they greet you, they don't just say like, hi, can I have your ID and check you in? They say, oh, where you're coming from? Oh, that sucks. You know, if you want, we have beer on tap, right? We always do local beer. So in Baltimore, it's Natty Bo. In DC, it's Right Proper. So like we have a microbrew. Or if you're not a drinker, we have coffee on tap. We have a cold brew coffee. Or we also have wine. We have water, juice boxes for the kids. And so as someone kind of gets comfortable, we start to talk to them like, what brings you here? You know, this is what's in the neighborhood. And so we have I would say almost the reverse problem. We spend a lot of time engaging with our guests. And so it does take a little bit longer to check in, but it's because you're now building a relationship with the people staying. What we have found is there's, maybe 70 to 80% of people, they want to come in and get out. But there's 20 to 30% of people who are really interested in understanding where they are and being part of a community. And so we're really able to have a brand imprint on those folks that want to chat a little longer. And then everybody else is still getting a product that is consistent. So the same, high-end hospitality furnitures in every unit. Everyone's got Chromecast so they can stream whatever they want. And you'll see little WhyHotel signs in all the units that are kind of quirky. And so people really get a sense of who we are. And when they come back, they're coming back for that same experience.
Yeah, it's amazing. So for me, again, I think bringing it back to what I was kind of trying to draw a line to was I feel like you guys have potentially taken the model of like the Airbnbs and what's the other one?
HomeAway and VRBO.
VRBO. But you've come in and you've added that hospitality piece which they miss, because sure, it's great to go to those properties, but you don't get that interaction and you don't get that welcome. And I feel like that's such a brilliant play for you guys to really own that space and still give them that freedom. It's their space. They can kind of cook in it. They can do whatever they want in it. They're not really limited. Whereas with all due respect to traditional hotels, there are definitely limits. And for me, when I do stay in a hotel, it's literally just a bed. You know what I mean? It's not an experience.
Yeah. And as you look at the spectrum of hotel rooms, you're seeing that kind of that bell curve like pull. So like on the just bed side, you're seeing Yotel and Pod and Citizen M. And a lot of these people are like, look, if someone just wants a bed, we're going to give them the best just bed experience of efficiency they can have. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've seen the Airbnbs and the corporate housing and the vacation rentals of the world. They're like, well, if someone's looking for a home, this is what you can have. And we feel like that area is underserved by experience, to your point. And so I think it's not only just that there's someone there to greet you and that there's someone on site 24/7, but it's consistency, right? If you book something on Airbnb or HomeAway, you might actually get an amazing experience. You might have somebody who, one of the graphic designers we work with, she Airbnbs her place out. And like, she just amazing graphic design. And you show up and there's little signs everywhere. And there's a bottle of wine from, and like, it's great. But you may go to somebody else and you might show up and you're like, oh my God, like, I can't my kids stay here. Like the HVAC's not working. Like, what do I do? And even if the Airbnb host wants to do something about that, they don't have depth of inventory. Right. So if an HVAC unit goes out and we're like, oh, we're so sorry, here's dinner on us. And by the way, we're going to move your stuff down the hall. So our depth of inventory allows for that consistency, and our 24/7 on site allows for that kind of that greeted experience you mentioned. So we think it's a great space to be in.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's such a brilliant idea. And I did look into a bit about what WhyHotel was, but I really appreciate you kind of laying it out for me more and describing kind of that user experience. Speaking of users, what are you seeing, or who are you seeing is your demographic, and what is your like avatar when you first started this business, and what is it now?
So in terms of demographics, I think that a lot of people's guess is that we're going to see people of one age range. Like, we're going to see younger people, right, that are more accustomed to an alternative stay. We actually see the full spectrum of age, which I think surprised us a little bit at first. And that's because it's a fantastic deal for what it is, right? I mean, so, when someone finds something that's a great deal, they're like, oh, they tell everybody. We have, I would say, 3 categories of guests, 3 big categories. So one is your Monday to Thursday business traveler. So this is like your consummate professional, every age range. And they're just, there's 20 days a month they're not home. And so to be able to have that home away from home is perfect for them. Then we have our leisure travelers. We call it group, but it's not like hotel group. And that's someone traveling with their kids, or someone traveling with their parents, or whatever. That group we see a lot of 30-year-olds in the middle, and they're either the one that are bringing their parents along who are older or dragging their kids along that are, young age. And then in that same leisure category, we see a lot of people in their 20s that are like going on a trip to Baltimore for the weekend with some friends. They came down from Philadelphia, and they'd much rather all stay in the same place, have their own bedroom, and then, have some drinks before they head out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last group is like, it's more middle term stays. So it's like relocations or doctor residencies. It's like 4 to 12 weeks.
Okay.
And I would say that tends to trend older. And that's just a function of people in their life that are renovating their home or generally not in their 20s or 30s, or, we see a lot of divorces, right? Someone needs a turnkey home for the next 2 months until they figure out their life situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the full spectrum of people, which is great.
Amazing. For a minute, I did real estate in London, England. I lived in England for 2 years, from 04 to 06. And I did what they called short rentals. So a minimum of a week, maximum of 4 weeks, for a company called Foxtons. I don't know if you know of Foxtons, but
I don't know them, but it's in the UK, the Apartel, or however the service department industry is sizable in a way that is in the United States.
Yeah. So I was going to say, is London on your target list, or are you guys happy to kind of play in North America right now?
Yeah. So we're definitely starting in North America, and specifically the States, because international law gets complicated. A big part of our business is understanding the local regulatory environment. And so that gets more complicated when you're not from the place and you're hiring people. And so right now we're highly focused on the States. I would say a bigger early opportunity for us is actually Asia. Okay. And skipping over Western Europe. Western Europe is got a lot of entrenched older regulation that's hard to play around. Where in Asia, there's more flexibility, and they're building more high rises. So like if you go to London, there's a lot of high rises being built for London, but not relative to the scale of that city, right? Like they don't build in the same way that you see in Asian cities or US cities. And so it's probably later on our roadmap, but we would expect to be everywhere at some point in time, whether in the pop-up assets or where you have that blurring of hospitality at home.
Very cool. Going back to the user experience, what does that look like from the start? So am I booking through an app? Am I booking through a website? How does the user get engaged with WhyHotel?
Yeah, so you're booking the same way you'd book either a vacation rental or a hotel. So you can book us through all the OTAs like Expedia and Booking.com or whatever else. You can book us through the vacation rental portals like Airbnb and HomeAway. You can have a travel agent book us through the global distribution system. We would prefer you go to our website and not pay those fees. So you can book us on our website, desktop, mobile. You can call 24/7 and book over the phone. So really, any channel that today you'd be able to book some version of accommodation, you can generally book us.
Very cool. Why do you find yourself in the position you're in, heading up this company in this industry? Was this a calling for you? Is there something about hospitality that just kind of lights you up, if you will? Or for you, is this a business play where you see an opportunity to grow a brand and have it make like it's an economic decision? Or is this something you really want to facilitate change in this space? Where are you right now, or where were you when WhyHotel kind of came to you as an idea?
Yeah, so my background's in high-rise institutional real estate development. So I managed the development of a couple $1 billion of buildings in the Washington, D.C. area. So I definitely, I have to take off my real estate hat, because that's, and that's where the opportunity exists, right? Because it's an inefficiency in real estate development. But me and my business partner we've known each other for a long time now. We've always wanted to build a business that had an impact on the community around us and made the world more efficient. It's just like the way we're wired. I actually went to school in Canada. I did an engineering degree at McGill. Yeah. And so the ability to bring together like the efficiency of technology with the oldness of real estate and have an impact on the community around us, that is our goal. I mean, I would say it is incredibly rewarding. And so the more we're able to build this and the larger it's able to become and the larger the impact, that's why we come to work in the morning. I mean, it's fun. It's a really fun thing to be doing.
That's awesome. You mentioned partnership. I've sat down with a lot of people on this show, whether they're restaurateurs or interior designers or architects that are operating in a partnership. And a lot of times that dynamic can be very challenging, I think in every industry, but this industry in particular, because it is so dynamic and it's so demanding and you need to be thinking of so many different angles at so many different times. How do you guys operate as a duo, as a team? I mean, is this typical? Are you the guy to kind of get on these podcasts and do the media thing, and your partner, sorry, I don't know his or her name, are they kind of in the background doing their thing? Are you guys flexing your muscles and your strengths, or do you guys kind of work off of each other day in and day out? What is that like?
Yeah, so we're true partners in it. His name is Bao. Bao, like take a bow.
Shout out, Bao.
Yeah, and we kind of divide and conquer. We each have our strengths. It's pretty rare that we're working on something at the same time, just because if one person's doing it, there's 100% trust that the other person's got it covered. I would say we split up the podcasts of the world. So we just who's available is honestly what it normally comes down to. I think we're both happy to speak to what we do, and we've instituted this thing where we realized we just weren't communicating often enough because you're just running all the time, and so we're morning people. So we'll do like a 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. at his house in the morning, or a 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. at my house before everyone gets to the office to just like catch up. And we do that about once a week, and that allows us to exchange ideas, do it, check the pulse, and then just kind of back at it. So I was gonna say it's a marriage, right? I mean, I spend more time with him than I do with my wife, which she points out to me. So you really got to enjoy the person you're working with, and you have to have a tremendous amount of trust, because if you're spending time second guessing each other, then you're going nowhere. Right.
Let's talk a bit about that piece, if you're comfortable with it, the sacrifices that we make as entrepreneurs and that you're making as an entrepreneur. Do you have kids right now, or just no?
I do. I have a 20-month-old son.
Oh, amazing. So yeah, we're kind of in the same boat, a little bit different, obviously, but similar, as we're two entrepreneurs hustling to get business up off the ground. How do you yourself exercise, for lack of a better term, that guilt of being on a podcast right now, at work right now, and not home, either with your wife or with your son? How do you manage that? How do you balance that? What does that sacrifice look like for you?
Yeah, I don't know that this has been as much of a sacrifice for me. I draw some pretty hard lines. So if I can't fit in the day what needs to get done, I'll get up at 1 or 2 in the morning and just work earlier. I travel about half the time. So when I'm not traveling, when I'm in DC, like I'm leaving the office at 5:30, and I'm going home and I'm doing dinner with the family, and bath and bed and reading the books, and so I very much make time for it. I think that I would be a non-effective leader of the company if I myself wasn't satisfied at home. Right. But it means that I have like no other life. Like I have my family, I have work, and like I see my friends when like happenstance leads to it. But it is, I think the bigger sacrifice is you shut everything else down, because those two things are all consuming. In terms of like hours, I definitely work more, but I'll tell you what, real estate development is not for the faint of heart anyway. So I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. So I'm not even, maybe I'm working like another 10 or 15 hours a week, but that's it. I mean, I was working this kind of schedule before, so it's just kind of been part of my life for a while now.
Right. Do you enjoy it? Do you love going to work every day?
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, I underestimated the emotional roller coaster of it. I will say that. I thought, even today, we were in a meeting this morning, and it was like someone came in with bad news, and everyone's like, I can't believe that happened. And then like 2 minutes later, someone came in with like huge news, and we're like, oh, this is amazing. We're going to take over the world. So, it is that's a little much. But that's the fun of it. I mean, right. I mean, you're moving fast, and you're building something. I mean, we were, 18 months ago, it was me and Bao sitting in an office. We're like, we're going to go build this thing. Today, we're about 50 people. We should be about 350 by the end of next year. We'll be doing tens of millions in dollars a year in revenue. I mean, that's the pace of it, and that's fun.
Amazing. That's so cool. I'm very, very excited to watch you guys grow. It's amazing. I'm reading a book right now called Relentless by Tim Grover. I don't know if you know the author. He was Michael Jordan's mindset coach and Kobe Bryant's mindset coach.
Yeah.
And he talks about what they were to their teams and to their sports. And he calls them cleaners, not closers, but cleaners. And they're the kind of guys, when everyone else is hitting the panic button, they're just cold, and they're still, and they're not getting too emotional, not too high, not too low. So when you're in that meeting this morning and someone brings in quote unquote bad news, if I was to look to you, one of the leaders of this business, how are you, Jason, reacting? Like, how does that affect you in that moment? And are you conscious of how you're reacting to those things?
I don't think I'm conscious of how I'm reacting because you're reacting. I think it's hard to like pull out, but calmly. I mean, it's a they were like, hey, we have to do this thing. Maybe we have to pull something. And I was like, all right, well, what are the 5 things that we know? What are the things we don't know? Okay, fine, pull it, and let's regroup and grab me if you need me, right? I mean, you don't have time to dwell on things. I think that I and my business partner, we're emotional people in that, we really care. It's super meaningful to us, but we're not emotionally reactive, right? Like as something's happening, you're never going to hear anyone here scream or like run around or, be like, and everyone's like, okay, let's walk through what's going on. And I think that comes from years of building buildings. I mean, it's messy and things always go wrong. And so you learn to just temper your emotions while you're dealing with the problems. And like, you can feel the emotions later. Like if you want to, you can like, at home, just not fall asleep because you're thinking about it. But besides that, I mean, in the moment, you're just doing your job. You're just getting it done.
Yeah, I like that. Let's talk more about challenges if we can with WhyHotel. I'm assuming, I know in this city, when it comes to a new restaurant wanting to open up in a space, like a brick and mortar space, and have a change of use and all these things, the permitting can just be an absolute pain in the behind, and a lot of times can cost that business tens of thousands of dollars, and a lot of times will even stop the project from even happening. So what issues have you come up with in the cities that you've gone into, being like permitting and those things? Or because I'm assuming this is a bit of a paradigm shift for a lot of these cities to understand what you're doing. How do you go about that? What challenges have you seen?
Yeah, that's most of the emotionally exhausting stuff. So we are executing on an operation that was not foreseen when the rules were written.
Right.
So we have to navigate zoning and building code and fire life safety and at this blurring where the rules are crystal clear that if you're an apartment building, you're this. If you're a hotel, you're that. If you're us on a temporary basis where you're rolling between units with a different set of guests that turn to residents, like it's grayer. So we've had a lot more wins than not, but we've definitely had some stumbling moments. And I personally work with each city on that. So I'm on a flight tonight at 11 p.m. that gets in the Pacific Coast, Pacific time at 1 a.m. Pacific. So hopefully I sleep on the plane, and you go into those meetings, and it's like an hour-long meeting, but it's with all the stakeholders, and you work through it. And then that just kind of is what it is. I don't know. That's part of being able to do something different in real estate. Again, back to the background of real estate development, you spend so much time when you're building buildings going through the same set of emotions. And so lessons learned from there, you just navigate it, but it is not for the faint of heart, and it is not inexpensive. At all. Yeah.
How much of your role then do you find is, at its core, an education role? Like, are you're educating these people, you're educating these cities on what can be done to impact their city positively, economically, and culturally?
Yeah. So for those conversations, it's I would say it's as much an education as it's a dialogue. It's also understanding what's important to them, and how we've partnered with some great cities. I mean, we're in DC, we're in Baltimore. I mean, they were both were fantastic to work with. So it starts with an education, but then it turns to a dialogue. And what is meaningful to you guys? How do you perceive these regulations? How can we do right by your long-term plans, but at the same time, facilitate this innovative use? So we spend a lot of time on that, but I think more of it's spent on dialogue than on education. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of my time today, it's building a team. I mean, finding great people and screening them correctly and indoctrinating them into the culture, and then having them themselves be able to do the things that we're doing so that we don't have to do them, and they can just be making strategic decisions with us, but they're running the day-to-day. That's the big in front of us right now, is to have a team. So by the way, if anyone's listening, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Please apply, because that is the hardest part about building a business quickly, is the people, because that is the business.
What are you looking for then? If someone is listening and they're intrigued by this concept and what you're talking about, and they're potentially in a city that you're populating and they want to get involved, how would they do that? And who is your quote unquote ideal candidate?
So the company kind of has two major divisions. One is real estate, and then the other is hospitality. Um, on the hospitality side, I mean, that's where we need the most people quickly. And it's everything from our fresh team that turns the units to our host hospitality ambassadors, GMs, AGMs. And yeah, I mean, we're looking for people who are interested in working in a they have this example at our Baltimore bureau. It's like building a ship while you're sailing from here to the UK, right? Like you got to be comfortable that it's changing while you're doing it, and so it's not just going through the motions, but it's really creating something from whole cloth, and then that something ends up kind of self-perpetuating. And so we're interested in people that aren't just looking for a job, but are looking for a career to help build a business where they can move up really quickly. But they're really. I mean, you're putting your soul into it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Good to know. So if you're listening, reach out to Jason and his team and get your name in the hat and help them out and be part of something from the ground up, which would be really cool. This show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, and the term and the word hospitality has come up a few times. How do you, Jason, define hospitality? And if you want to define it in the eyes or in the breadth of what WhyHotel is, that's cool. But also just you personally, how do you define, like in your home, for example, or with your friends or your family, how do you define hospitality?
So we at WhyHotel define it as making life easier. And we think that that's kind of key to everything hospitality oriented, whether that's making life easier because it's a person who's, giving you the lay of the land for the neighborhood you're in, or allowing you to be able to watch the TV you want to watch or use the freezer or whatever. It's just making life easier. I think that's at the core of everything we do. I would say for me at home, the same thing. Anything, I would say that even Uber is hospitality to me, because that has like improved the way that I can, live my life efficiently, or Lyft or whatever. And so I would put everything in that make life easier bucket in hospitality.
I like that. We still don't have Uber or Lyft in Vancouver, which is
what?
Yeah.
How do you get anywhere?
We drive, or we take yellow cabs.
I mean, I was just having this conversation with one of the folks on our team the other day. I flew down to Texas, and I was in a meeting, and then I was like, oh, crap, I got to get to the airport. And like, had this been 5 years ago, I would have had to call a cab, and they'd be there in 15 to 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then they would, and then like, if they didn't show up in 15 minutes, I would start freaking out. And then I'd call again. They'd be like, someone's on their way, and I would have missed my flight. And then my wife would have been super upset because I didn't show, like, there would have been this whole series of events. But instead, I was like, oh, we can finish this conversation 1 second. And I click the button, and 4 minutes later, there's a car outside. And, I just can't imagine life without that anymore. And I think that, we're hoping to do the same thing in hospitality. The way that we continue to build out our platform, hopefully 10 years from now, people are like, can you even believe that we were doing it this way before?
Yeah, that's so cool. It's such a great mindset and a cool paradigm shift. And it's amazing when you do travel to cities that do have the infrastructure like a Lyft or an Uber, how, like you said, how easy it is and how much easier it makes your life. So if you're listening and you're involved with the city of Vancouver, please hear us out and give us Lyft and Uber. I have two final questions for you, Jason. I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot, but I put everyone on the spot. But I think you can do it. You seem like a pretty smart guy. You studied in Canada at McGill University, so obviously you're pretty good. So I ask every guest these exact same questions. I'm gonna give them to you. So I need from you, Jason, your half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. So I need from you 1 to 6 items, so 1 to half a dozen items, things that you've experienced in your life related to your business or not. It's 1 to 6 things that you have done that you feel like our listeners have to experience, whether it's a book you've read, a meal you've eaten, a trip you've taken, an album you've listened to, a concert you've been to, a piece of art you stared at. 1 to 6 things that you feel like our listeners have to do.
I wish I had gotten a heads up on this one.
I don't give anyone the heads up, just so you know. That's why I give you the option.
My number one most amazing trip in my life was to Scotland, to a small little cabins it's called Glenclova. Okay. I went there with my now wife. It was our first it was like our first week together in Scotland. She's Scottish.
Okay.
And it was the most amazing trip of my life. So I'm not, so if you want to go to Glen Clova, I don't know if those guys even know who I am. They don't know who I am, actually. I know they don't know. A bunch of sheep and cows, and we walked up a mountain, and there was like some kind of lagoon on top that has some name in Scottish. I don't know.
Right.
So that is hands down the best travel experience of my life. I would say second to that, when I was in college, I used my student loan money to go visit my sister who was in London, because I figured I would never know anyone else in Europe again. Obviously, my in-laws were there, so I was wrong. And we did a 2-week backpack for Europe thing. We did couch surfing. We met some awesome people. We met some really less awesome people. And that also was a life-changing event for me. I mean, we went to we were in Vienna. We went to Hungary. We went up to northern Scotland. And it was just beautiful.
Amazing.
And the people you meet. And I guess, and then the last one is, and most people have missed the window on this, going to university outside of the country you grew up in changes your perspective of the world. So when I went to McGill, and I had a great time there, I went for all the wrong reasons. I probably shouldn't say why I went there, but I went for all the wrong reasons.
That's all right.
I grew up in the States, and I was like, oh, Montreal, the drink age is 18. It's a real city. This is going to be awesome. And I showed up as that kind of like, I don't know, like embarrassingly fratty, backwards hat-looking kid from the States. I mean, it hurts. And I showed up to a place where the first language is not my language. And there's a set of people that had a very unique perspective on the world, because unique being it wasn't the same as everybody else I knew. And that has, I would say, shaped my life and how I look at everything, actually. I think that was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. So to the extent that someone hasn't missed the window yet, to be able, maybe even just to live abroad, but to be able to go to school abroad after kind of getting out of your bubble, second to my wife, that's probably been the best experience in my life.
Yeah, I agree. I like I said, lived overseas for 2 years. While I didn't have to worry about different languages, it's just you learn so much about yourself when you aren't comfortable. And I'm sure that backwards hat got turned around eventually.
I got rid of the hat.
There you go.
Rid of the hat. Yeah, I mean, there's something about being an outsider that makes you do a self-assessment and kind of take a relook at your values in life. So it was awesome.
Can we quickly celebrate like your favorite thing about Montreal? Because I think it's such a beautiful city, and we're so lucky to call it a Canadian city here, but it has such a European feel. What to you sticks in your mind? Some of the highlights of that city.
I mean, it's the people. It's the people. It was so fun. I shouldn't say it. There's a bar. I don't even know if it's there anymore. It was in the old Montreal called La Colala. And I don't know if you've been there, then you would remember it. No. And you would show up, and it like started out like casual night. Everyone's having a couple beers, and Montreal's got great beer. Canada's got great beer. And all of a sudden, some like dudes come out in lederhosen, and they're like dancing on the bar. And then all of a sudden, everyone else just gets on the bar, and like the whole night. And it was like every Friday night turned into like a lederhosen like dance. And you don't experience that in places. I mean, it was incredible, and everyone kind of roll out, and there's amazing Lebanese food in Montreal, right? Mm-hmm. So like when you're a poor college kid, you can get like shish taouk or something for like $3 or $4, or the dollar pizza goes up to $1.15 at night. I remember that used to be upsetting to me. But Montreal's just got such a great set of people. Today, I was there actually a few months ago, and the food is incredible. But when I was in college, we ate just
garbage.
Poutine. We ate poutine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the food scene there is just unreal. Places like, I mean, Joe Beef is just like internationally known now.
I mean, the cheese actually squeaks. It's
the cheese squeaks. Yeah, it should. The cheese should squeak. The last question I have for you is of the same ilk, but it's the half a dozen haven't yet. Should be a little easier for you, kind of like a bucket list thing. So 1 to 6 items that are on your list, Jason Fudin, of things that you haven't experienced in your life yet. Maybe it's another trip. Maybe it's a concert, maybe it's a meal, maybe going back to Scotland. What's on that list?
So the number one, and it just happens inevitably, is the actual, like, to be able to raise my son, like to have a conversation with him. So to me, I'm so looking forward to that moment that like I can really engage and shape the life of the person that like I brought into the world, or my wife brought into the world. Yeah. So for me, that's my number one. That's the thing I'm most excited about doing, and it feels inevitable at this point in time.
Definitely.
And let's see what else. What else am I looking forward to doing? I don't know.
You know what? Not to interrupt you, but a lot of people that have come on this show, not a lot, I'd say a few. When I ask them that question, they only have like one or two. And I find that so refreshing because I feel like it's maybe speaking to not how busy you are, but maybe like how fulfilled you are. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe you're kind of doing it all right now. You're a dad, you're running a very like edgy, new, cool business. Like these are all pretty fantastic things, no?
Yeah, I think the second thing, yeah, I mean, I am fulfilled. I'm also distracted by those things. So it is hard to like think about what else you might want to do with
Right.
your time.
Right.
I think that, the other thing that I really look forward to on later in life is teaching. So, right now we're in the doing phase, but eventually you watch, you appreciate that as people get older, that your pace changes, and so, what I want to do eventually is transition from being the person that's building the things and building the teams to being the person that's helping other people think about what they could do and have their impact. So I think that for me, that'll probably be my second big one. Eventually, I'll see the world. There's just, it's just.
You got a lot of stuff going on.
It's just a little busy.
I like that. So I want to thank you, Jason, so much for your time. And I mean this to the marrow of my bones, that it is the most valuable thing that you and I have. So thank you for giving me and listeners 40 minutes and 56, 57, 58 seconds of your time today. And I want to celebrate you for doing what you do. I want to celebrate you for being what I would consider to be a bit of a bushwhacker in this industry, going down this path that is very dimly lit, but you and Bao are shining a light on what could be done and what this system could look like and what hospitality could look like. So thank you so much for kind of leading the way and leading the pack when it comes to what you guys are doing. And thank you for unknowingly inspiring people like me and many, many listeners that I have, for showing what can be done with hard work, focus, and some tenacity. So thank you so much for doing what you do.
Yeah, Brad, thanks for having me. This has been fun. If you're ever in one of our cities, you should stay with us.
Oh, 100%. That's a given. I was already saying it's definitely on my list. I have never been to DC. So definitely on my list of places to visit, and you bet your ass that I'll definitely be
come here. We'll give you a little tour of the neighborhood, tour of some of the streets. We'll take you to the places people don't know before they're famous. You get the whole scene.
I love it. Thank you again so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as you do week after week. Before I let Jason go officially, let's find out how best to get in touch with him and his company, whether it's through social media or online. What's the best way, Jason, for them to reach out and either speak with you personally maybe, or even just interact with WhyHotel?
Yeah, so go to our website so you can see what's going on. You can email us at hello@whyhotel.com. That's WHY Hotel, when you can have a place like home. And shoot us a note, and our team is, we're customer service oriented. So someone will very quickly get back to you and put you in touch with the right person here. And then if you're in DC or Baltimore, meet us in person. And as we kind of grow that list, we'd love to see people.
Amazing. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Appreciate your support. You know what to do until next week. Be good and do good. That's it, man. We did it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. This is great. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully that was painless for you.
Yeah, I love talking